Her name is Melinda. An extra beauty young slay queen. On the outside she is every man's fantasy and every woman's envy. She is a slay queen by title and a heartbreaker by reputation. What nobody knew was that behind her polished nails, heavy makeup and expensive dollars wigs, clothes and shoes was a twisted obsession, one that could ruin her life forever. Melinda doesn't sleep with rich politicians, or sugar daddy, or even musicians. No. Her desire was far darker. She only felt true lust for men society called mad. The mentally unstable. The street wanderers. The forgotten souls. The kind who talked to the air, laughed at nothing, wear tattered rags and roam in the streets. She believes madness held a kind of freedom no man could ever give her and a sweet hot sex no man in his right sense could ever give her. Melinda lived in a well-furnished, stylish apartment with her fellow slay queens. The place looked nice on the outside, but deep down, it was full of foolishness. All the girls were beautiful in their own way, with their makeup always on point and their clothes showing off their curves. But still, none of them could match Melinda's beauty. Melinda's beauty was something else, natural, bright, and glowing like she came straight from heaven. Every time she stepped out, heads would turn. Even her fellow slay queens would secretly stare at her, wondering how one person could look so perfect. They whispered among themselves, asking, "Where did this girl get her beauty from?" Whenever she walked into the house she looked like a boss lady. Calm and confident. And the most surprising part? She was the one paying for the apartment they all lived in. Rent, light bills, food, everything was on Melinda. This made the other girls jealous. They smiled in front of her, but deep down, they envied her life. They wished they were her. They would talk behind her back, but still, they couldn't stop admiring her. Nobody knew where her money came from. Some said it was sugar daddies, others thought she was into some kind of business. But Melinda never told them. She just kept living her soft, sweet life like a queen, untouched, unbothered, and undefeated. Among those slay queens living with Melinda, there was one in particular named Melissa. She was very desperate to find out where Melinda was getting her money from. Melissa would often sneak around and secretly check Melinda's phone whenever she wasn't looking. Sometimes, she would copy the phone numbers of Melinda's sugar daddies and later try to meet up with them behind Melinda's back, but things didn't go the way Melissa hoped. The sugar daddies didn't give her as much money as she expected. After sleeping with them, Melissa would feel used and disappointed, but she still didn't stop. She became even more determined to discover Melinda's secret source of income, no matter what it took. Every night, while the other slay queens were busy posting their naked pictures online, painting their nails, and doing everything slay queens love to do, Melinda would quietly sneak out of the house. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. She didn't dress up like the others. She would just wear a simple hoodie and slippers and slip out into the night. Each time she left, Melissa would watch her from the window. She always wondered where Melinda was going. Why was she not like the others? Why didn't she care about the likes, the attention, or the parties? Melissa would sit in her bedroom, thinking deeply. Every night, Melinda left the house without telling anyone where she was going, and she always came back in the middle of the night. She looked tired. In fact, she always looked dirty, calm, and sometimes even happier than before she left. What confused Melissa even more was how Melinda always had money. She never showed off, but whenever she needed anything, she could afford it. Expensive perfumes, neat clothes, and even paid her rent on time. Yet, no one ever saw her sleeping around. The only thing she does is communicate on phone with her sugar daddies and rich politicians. She doesn't go out with any of them, but always sneaking out in the night. One evening, Melissa gathered the courage to ask her, "Melinda," she said gently, "where do you go every night? And where do you get all your money from? And why do you like sneaking out without telling any of us?" Melinda looked at her for a moment, then gave a small smile. "You wouldn't understand," she said quietly. "It's a long story." Then she turned and walked away, leaving Melissa with even more questions than before. Melinda returned to her room and sat fearfully on her bed, her heart pounding. She couldn't believe Melissa had found out. How did she know about my secret escapes? I thought I had been careful. But it seemed Melissa knew everything. Melinda held her head in her hands, trying to think. What should I do? What could I do? No matter how hard she tried, no ideas came to her. She was scared. What if Melissa told someone? What if my secret got out? Tears welled up in her eyes as she imagined all the shame she could get into. Then, slowly, she made up her mind. There was only one thing she could do. "I'll go and beg her," she whispered to herself. "I'll ask her not to tell anyone. I'll beg her to keep it a secret." With shaky hands and a heavy heart, Melinda stood up and quietly walked out of her room to find Melissa. Melinda quietly walked to Melissa's bedroom. She knocked softly and pushed the door open. Melissa was sitting on her bed, reading. Melinda walked in slowly and sat down beside her. "Please, Melissa," she said in a low voice, "don't tell anyone about me sneaking out at night. I beg you, keep it a secret." Melissa looked at her and smiled a little. "Okay," she said, "but you have to tell me the secret behind your wealth. How do you get so much money?" "I promise I won't tell anyone." Melinda looked down and shook her head. "I can't," she said. "You can't do what I do. It's too risky." Melissa's eyes widened. "What is it that's so risky that you can't even tell anyone?" she asked, but Melinda still refused. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Melinda kept begging Melissa not to expose her. "Please, Melissa," she said again and again, "don't tell anyone. I promise I'll be careful. Just don't let anyone know." But Melissa also kept begging her. "Just tell me some of your secrets," she said. "I won't tell anyone, I promise. I just want to know how you make your money." Melinda shook her head. "You can't do what I do," she said. "It's not safe. It's too risky. I don't want you to get hurt." They went on like that for a while. Melinda begged her not to talk, and Melissa begged her to share her secret. But Melinda stayed firm. "I'm sorry," she said, "I can't tell you." At last, Melissa sighed and said, "Okay, I won't tell anyone. I promise. Your secret is safe with me." Melinda was so happy. Her face lit up with joy. "Thank you so much," she said with a big smile. She stood up, gave Melissa a hug, and happily left her room. Melissa began to wonder what kind of secret Melinda had that made her not wanting her to be like her. She kept thinking, why is she hiding it so much? What if she is a thief? Or even a kidnapper? What could be that risky secret she is keeping away from us? She thought about it for a long time and finally said to herself, "I won't tell anybody. But one day, I will follow her at night to see where she normally goes." Then one night, Melinda was sneaking out of the compound as usual. She thought no one was watching. But Melissa was ready. She quietly followed her, making sure Melinda didn't see her. Melinda kept walking quietly through the dark streets. Her eyes looked tired, but her steps were steady. She had no idea that Melissa was behind her, hiding in the shadows, watching every move she made. Melinda finally stopped at a lonely corner of the street. There, sitting on old boxes and broken chairs, were a group of mad men. Their clothes were dirty, and their eyes looked wild. But as soon as they saw Melinda, they jumped up like they had been waiting for her. They rushed toward her with open arms, laughing and shouting strange things. They hugged her roughly, kissed her roughly, and some of them even touched her breasts without shame. Melinda didn't fight back. She just stood there and let it happen. Like she had done it before, Melissa stood behind, frozen. Her eyes wide, her heart racing. She couldn't believe what she had just seen. Was this really Melinda? The same girl who always smiled kindly and wore clean, beautiful clothes. Melissa wiped her eyes, thinking maybe she was dreaming. But no, it was all real. Her hands trembled as she covered her mouth in shock. Shame filled her heart. How could someone so beautiful, so kind, and so rich end up in something so dirty and strange? She didn't have answers. Only questions. And a heart full of sadness. The mad men laughed loudly as they roughly had sex with her, one after the other. Around the open field, Melinda was enjoying it with them, screaming with joy. She laughed loudly, happier than she had ever been. Melissa standing quietly a few feet away, frozen with shock. Her mouth dropped open at the sight of her friend behaving like one of them. Then, without thinking, Melissa shouted, "Melinda! Melinda! What do you think you are doing?" Melinda stopped suddenly. She looked up, breathing hard, her face still glowing from laughter. But as soon as she saw Melissa, the smile faded. "So, you've been following me?" she asked, her voice shaking. "After everything I begged you? After I pleaded with you to let me be?" Tears welled up in Melissa's eyes. She couldn't speak. She just turned around and ran, covering her face, the tears flowing freely down her cheeks as Melinda stood frozen, watching her disappear. The other Slay Queens were sitting in their usual corner, busy posting pictures online and painting their nails with bright colors. Laughter filled the air as they compared likes and shared gossip. Suddenly, Melissa ran in between them. Her face was wet with tears, and she was breathing faster than expected, almost like she had been chased. The girls jumped up, shocked. "What's going on? What's after you?" one of them asked, but Melissa couldn't speak. She just stood there, gasping for air, her hands shaking. She looked around, but said nothing. Her eyes were red, and it was clear something had hurt her deeply. Before they could ask more, Melinda also walked in. Her steps were slow but heavy. Anger and frustration were clearly written all over her face. She didn't even look at anyone as she entered. The Slay Queens turned to her too. "Melinda, are you okay? What happened?" one of them asked carefully, but Melinda, just like Melissa, refused to talk. She sat down in silence, staring into space. The other Slay Queens looked at each other, confused. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to do. Something serious had just happened, but they were left in the dark.